Here's Phil to tell you more.
Okay. Hellblade 2. Well, if you played Hellblade 1, you pretty much know what Hellblade 2 is. Like, no exaggeration, Hellblade 1 and Hellblade 2 are incredibly similar games. In fact, I would almost argue they purposefully didn't change the game much from the first one. Now, a lot of people might have issue with that and say, well, I don't understand. Hellblade 1 was in 2017. It's 2024. What has Ninja Theory been doing for 7 years?
I'm actually not sure.
I don't know if they got other stuff they're working on, but there's no way that it took them 7 years to make this game. Just to make this abundantly clear, if they did, that was probably the worst production schedule in the game development history, besides maybe Duke Nukem Forever or Daikatana, because that game is not 7 years of work, okay?
Oh my god, excuse me.
Gameplay number 1, you are walking around and searching for secrets in the environment. There's two kinds of secrets. There's walls that look like faces, and when you stare at them, they fade away, and you find a tree with a little story snippet that has nothing to do with the actual story of the game. Or you find a hidden area, and you'll find a totem, and when you look at the totem, some other narrator starts talking, and once again tells you a story that has absolutely nothing to do with the story of the game. So yes, the side content of Hellblade 2 literally has nothing to do with Hellblade 2. Don't ask me why they did that. They could have easily put supplementary logs and stuff in there, but it's just completely unrelated content. Imagine if you were playing Elden Ring and you found an illusory wall and you walked through and there was an item with lore and you started reading the lore and it was about Super Mario Brothers. That's the side content of Hellblade 2. Figure that one out, okay? The other kind of gameplay is puzzles, and the puzzles are incredibly similar to the puzzles from Hellblade 1. Sometimes you have to align certain things in the environment to make it look like a rune, and when you do, oh, you've unlocked a certain part of a key or a code to open a door or something like that. Oh! Random. The new element in this game is that you can look at these floating bubbles and it changes things in the environment. And that's it. Like, those are the two kind of puzzles in the game. Basically, looking for runes and moving things around your environment. Those are the puzzles of Hellblade 2. Not to say that they're all simple. Some of them are actually quite tricky. Now that I'm at the end of the game, I just did a puzzle that was pretty darn tricky. It took me about 15 minutes to solve, because it was in 3 giant rooms you had to keep going between to solve this puzzle. And then there's the combat. And the combat is insanely simplistic in this game. You've got a light and heavy attacks, of which there's literally no reason to ever go between. You never need to go between the two at all. You could always just mash light attack. There's the block and parry button, and there's the dodge button. Okay? So here's combat. An enemy's coming at you.
Don't bother attacking, just wait. And when they attack, try to parry by tapping block as soon as they attack.
If you block, well, you blocked. You didn't take damage.
Wow.
Now you can dodge, and after you dodge, sometimes you can get a hit in, but the most effective way to play the game is to parry everything and then counterattack afterward. The enemies in the game are literally all the same. They are all these tribal enemies called Draugr, or other enemies that look like feral beasts, but they're not real. I guess they're all in Senua's mind, but literally they're all the same. They just kind of attack, you kind of parry, and then you do a combo, and you wait for the mirror to charge up, and you kill them.
I have just described the entirety of Hellblade 2.
There was one puzzle boss that I had to fight, where you had to run around dodging instant death attacks. Not that it mattered, because if you instantly died, you respawned anyway and just started the sequence over, which was instantly loading. And basically what we had to do is run around an arena and hit little chains and then free this creature, and then it was over. Now, me describing the game like this, you might be like, well, then it sounds like it's a crappy game. But Hellblade 1 also was incredibly simplistic in its gameplay elements. Where these games shine are the graphics and the story. Hellblade 1, when it released in 2017 on the Xbox One, was literally best in class of games on Xbox. Like, it looked so good, it blew you away. Hellblade 2 is good, but at this point in history, with the way graphics have advanced in video games, there's definitely other games that have graphics just as good. So it doesn't really blow you away the way that Hellblade 1 did. Also, it runs at a
cinematic
30 frames per second on Xbox Series X, and I actually tested it with motion blur off and on. Now, normally I hate motion blur in video games, but in this case, because the game is
cinematic
and runs at a lower frame rate, it actually looks better to me with the motion blur on. So after disabling it for 5 minutes, I turned it back on and I was like, I'm just going to leave it on. In Hellblade 2, she's finally taking it. Ooh! To the Norsemen, who showed up and killed her whole tribe. She's going to their homeland. Well, this leads her on a quest, of course, that goes crazy. No exaggeration, this one is wilder than the first, because you've got human characters that appear to be normal people.
Yet they're talking about fantastical stuff like, oh yeah, there's giants, and there's magical hidden folk who have powers, and there's Draugr who are cannibalistic monsters, and you're telling me all this, you're like, that's something that would have been in her head in the first game?
But apparently this is real. In this game, these characters are supposedly in the story real people, or so you think, right? And that's really the story of this game. She's traveling through these Norse lands, finding out, why did the Norse people invade my homeland to begin with? Is there a good reason for it? You know, and basically that's the story. Some of the hidden content seems to be superfluous. Like, it doesn't really tell anything else in the story. I enjoy looking for secrets in games. So when I find an ingenious hidden wall that looks like a human face from a certain angle, and I look at it, it opens, and there's a secret inside, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Reminds you of the days back, remember Knack?
What? How in Knack there'd be a wall with a tiny crack, like, what's that? And you hit it, and the whole wall would break, and there were secrets inside. And remember how revolutionary that felt, because back then it wasn't common for things to look like they were naturally part of an environment. It's kind of the same feeling for me there. The game's too samey. I feel like I'm playing Hellblade 1 again 7 years later, and even though there's a new story, they didn't really do anything to innovate at all. They took 7 years to make this game, and I couldn't tell you of a new element that works or even is in the game. It feels like the same game a second time. Without spoiling, the culmination final boss fight of the first game within the first 10 minutes of the sequel is completely superfluous and meant nothing.
That's stupid.
Why did you build to a big ending in the first game just to discard that resolution and have it all restart again in this game? That's dumb. You know what that's called? A bad plot device for this game to advance. That's stupid as shit. Give us something so it feels like that journey in the first game was worthwhile, and it doesn't. It makes it feel like the whole first game was a waste of your time, and that pissed me off.
Imagine if you were playing Super Mario Brothers, and then Super Mario Brothers 2 was identical to Super Mario Brothers, just more levels. Oh wait, they did that. It was called Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels. Remember that? The original Super Mario 2 actually just was that. Oh, okay.
Far from the bright lights of Las Vegas or New York City.
So, hint hint. So, hint hint. So, hint hint.